by staff and their families. And we're just so thankful this Thanksgiving season for the fact that this authority has been moving in the right direction, and we thank you for each staff member and what they do to just improve the system. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Any public comment? We'll move to the approval section. Item 1, minutes from the October 16, 2024 Facilities Committee meeting.
Chairman, I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. 2, fiber optic sharing agreement. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. This was considered at our last meeting. A bit of a miscommunication between us and the county staff, and once approved, the county attorneys wanted to make a few more edits to the agreement. They appear to be mostly administrative in nature and does not change the ultimate outcome. So we recommend please approving this for a second time for the administrative updates as requested by the Glynn County Attorney's Office.
I have a motion.
I move that the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission renew the fiber optic sharing agreement with Glynn County Board of Commissioners.
I'll second the motion. Just one question. Is that edit in or edit out?
They were editing in a few, adding some. They wanted to put the termination date of the previous agreement and things like that in there.
So the changes are in red.
The changes are, yes, sir. The changes are the things in blue that got added. The ones in red were the ones that were previously made. The ones in blue are the ones they added. So it's we entered into agreement in 2014, and then it's set to expire on this date. And so it doesn't change the substance, but it does change some of the language in there about things like that. So we confirmed with Charlie, and he wanted to run it back through here. So here we are.
They've changed our name.
Actually, and I've corrected that on I did switch the copy out. The purple that you don't see is where I'm correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right.
Any other questions? None, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the Glynn Brunswick 911 Services Agreement for External Entities. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. The Glynn County Board of Commissioners and the City of Brunswick Commission, they established a joint public safety communications department that provides radio coverage for EMS services, police, and fire. And also there's other public entities that provide a benefit, such as us, to Glynn County and the City of Brunswick through an 800 megahertz radio system. We purchased a total of 10 of these radios in 3 separate purchases in 2015, 2017, and 2021, and they're only utilized during emergency response efforts when we lose cell service. Obviously, our primary method of communication during these storm events is cellular service. However, as we experienced during Hurricane Helene, when we lost cell service for, half a day or more, we couldn't get communication out, so we had these 10 radios that enabled us to keep some communication with team members. And then when we get cell phones back, we go back to that. There's never been an agreement between JWSC and the Public Safety Communications Department for the use of these radios, and no charge is associated with usage. They were doing some auditing on their end and determined that an agreement was needed. And so there's an agreement attached that outlines our responsibilities for using these radios and also provides for a service charge to be paid to Glynn County for the usage of the radios, which will account for $66,600 annually. This was apparently an oversight back when these were originally bought. We never got an agreement together. And so this is just cleaning up the paperwork on that.
Have a motion.
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission into the Brunswick 911 Services Agreement with the Glynn County Board of Commissioners.
Second, any questions?
I will add, Mr. Chairman, that I'm familiar with this, and that this Joint Water and Sewer is not the only entity that's getting cleaned up. There was some discrepancy with the school system as well as the college. So
And
we're not.
we don't have access to the police and fire radio channels. We have a separate radio channel, so it's all, we're not getting information we're not supposed to have. It's just where they literally are only used during storm events.
But clearly these are Absolutely.
They're critical, and
They are
because let me tell you, when you're in the middle of 80 people running around and you lose cell phone service, it is chaos for a few hours there until we can get back on our feet. So.
And the radio's been performing well?
Yeah, they do pretty well.
And they're older, I mean, but they're...
Some of them are older, but you know, we keep them charged up. They work out pretty well. Now, unfortunately, we don't use them enough, so there's a little bit of a lag when we start using them for everybody to figure out how to use them again.
Sure.
But it's essentially like a walkie-talkie style radio where we can all communicate together on the channels, and works pretty effectively. Obviously, we don't have one in every truck, but we have one at the different locations where people are going to be checking in at, so we know what's going on.
So what are we paying the county actually for?
It's basically a service fee for us being able to utilize their network.
So that includes the maintenance
Yeah.
for the base station, the antennas,
Yeah, all
the
that
people
stuff.
that run the radios at the EOC. And all
Yeah.
that.
Well, if we're not using their frequencies,
We're using,
Yeah.
we have different channels on their network.
So some other people would utilize the same channels we would use?
No, but if there was an emergency, they needed to like click over and
Yeah.
get a hold of Andrew, they could.
They could.
So, yeah, if
yeah.
you need to talk to Andrew. then-
It's the same radio network that the police and fire use for everyday operations. We just have a separate channel on their radio network, and we don't have to put in the infrastructure for the radio network.
so do you have your own base station too? Or is it just?
Nope.
No.
You just have handhelds, 10 handheld radios.
Other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the 1703 Gloucester subdivision plat.
Can you pull this up for us? As you may recall, a couple years ago, we entered into an intergovernmental lease agreement with purchase option for the previous CVS property next door that is now the Board of Elections. That lease agreement was for $5,500 per month, which Glynn County has paid on time every month since then. But the purchase price was $280,000. The Glynn County Board of Elections put in a substantial amount of money upgrading that facility for their needs. Any lease payments to date go towards the purchase price according to the agreement. We've been working through subdividing the property because this was all one lot, and that the subdivision between the city and the county must go through the city subdivision approval process. And so we've gotten through that point where the plat is ready for approval. And so you can see there, they're taking essentially wall to wall in the Board of Elections office, a little bit of the back alleyway, and the front parking lot between the medians in the front parking lot. We maintain the two ends of the building, the rear parking lot, and then the alleyways behind our two buildings. Also, we'll have reciprocal easements recorded for access, and also the generator, because if you see right there in the center of the building, there are two generators behind the Board of Elections building. That is our generator right there. So it's technically on what will be their new parcel, so we'll have an easement on their parcel for our generator. And so this is to subdivide it officially, and then upon subdivision, require the balance of the amount to be paid, which is $48,500 for the property from Glynn County.
Have a motion?
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve the subdivision plat of 1703 Gloucester Street.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Y'all on the commission when all this took place?
I was. What was the purchase price of the building?
Of our whole building, I don't remember. Like I said, we agreed on a purchase price based off appraised value for the Board of Elections area to be $280,000.
That was a while back.
That was in 2021. Obviously, it would price for more now.
Yeah, they got a bargain.
Well, particularly since they put a lot of money into it, it would price for a lot more now.
Yeah, because I thought, for whatever reason, I thought the price of the building was like 1.3.
That's likely, yes, sir. I don't remember exactly what that total was, but they're good neighbors. Really only have much traffic, a couple times a year. So
When they were doing early voting last month, they were
very convenient for early voting for our staff members. I will say that.
And there weren't that many cars in the parking
No,
lot. Was
it's
it?
very
Such a
efficient.
problem.
Very efficient. One thing I will note, if you notice, we don't own any of the parking spots adjacent to our building. Those are all part of the public right-of-way. So all these parking spots out here, we technically do not own. all on-street parking.
So all of the infrastructure supporting the building is separate for each entity?
Yes, sir. Except for the storm drains. The storm drains are joint behind there, and it also runs out. The storm drain runs out towards, there is a storm drain that runs out towards, what is that street to the north? Johnson Street? And that drains the old parcel as well beside that where the courthouse is there. So that, other than that, all the water and sewer are separate. Separate meters, separate laterals, the whole nine.
So I guess the building is not in the right of way, it's just the sidewalk.
Just the sidewalk. Yeah, the building is at the edge of the right of way. There's
No setback.
I don't believe we would meet current setback requirements.
No either.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Next item, Academy Creek influent pumps purchase. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. We operate 4 influent pumps at Academy Creek that distribute the wastewater into the treatment process. We have existing 125 horsepower, 12-inch Yeoman pumps that are obsolete, and our parts are not available. We got quotes last year to machine some of the parts that the impeller was going to be $30,000. So due to the lack of availability of parts, that was confirmed by multiple repair shops and the manufacturer's rep for the previous Yeoman's line of pumps. We purchased 2 new flight pumps from Xylem Water Solutions in September 2023. In the fiscal year 25 budget, we requested funds for 2 additional flight pumps for Academy Creek. We approved a contract for BRW Construction to replace the bases and guide rails for all 4 pumps a couple of months ago. The materials for the bases and guide rails have been provided. They're already on site by Xylem at no cost because they were unable to match the existing bases. So now that we've got all those parts ready to go, the request is to purchase the other 2 flight pumps, which are 110 horsepower flight pumps. And the cost of these 2 new pumps, including shipping, is $168,030. There was $160,000 budgeted in the capital project, capital line item, so we're about 5% over the original estimate. But rather than having, now we could buy cheaper pumps, but Flight makes a very good pump, and we want consistency amongst the pumps at the influence station. So this is a sole source purchase from Xylem Water Solutions. They're the only people in the state of Georgia you can buy these pumps from.
Have a motion?
I move that the Facilities Committee recommend that the full commission approve the purchase of the 2 new flight pumps at Academy Creek from Xylem Water Solutions in the amount of $168,030.
I'll second the motion.
This is the last item on the capital equipment list approved in the budget for FY25.
So is the contractor who's putting other stuff, he's gonna put these into?
They won't put the pumps in. We got a contract with BGJWSC to replace the bases and the guide rails. We can put the pumps in as long as the bases and guide rails are there.
When they come, will we have all 4 pumps in there?
No, sir, we'll do 2 at a time.
Or you only have 2 in there, and just 2 stand by, you're gonna put all 4 of them?
All 4 of them will be in there, but we're gonna do 2 bases, put the 2 pumps we have now in there, and then once the other 2 pumps get here, if this is approved, then we'll put the other 2 bases in.
How old are the pumps that we're replacing?
They were 18 to 20 years old.
Where are they coming from? The freight charge of $11,000?
I think Flight's Sweden, correct?
Where is?
I think it's Sweden.
Too long for a field trip for someone to bring them back, I guess.
It's a nice field trip.
No, BRW puts the bases and the guide rails in. We can lower the pumps down on the guide rails and land them on the bases.
But he's gonna put all the bases in now?
No, he's gonna do 2 bases now and we've got the contract for all 4. He's gonna put 2 in, put the 2 we've already got in the hole.
Right.
And that should happen, not next week with the holiday, but the week after. And then if these are ordered, when these are delivered, we'll put the other 2 bases in at that point. Because we're going to pull the old pumps out at that point, because we're going to keep using the old pumps. They need to be replaced, but they're giving us something right now.
Got to use a crane to get them in and out?
Oh, yes, sir. We rent a crane and an operator for the day.
It's a very deep hole.
It's
I
quite the
know.
hole.
I've stood on the edge there. I understand.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is dedication of easements and infrastructure. Mr. Klein?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioners, this is a dedication of infrastructure and easements, and this is the part of our agenda where we get to show how we're growing the system through private development work in this case. And the first item to talk about is Vintage Brunswick Apartments. Vintage Brunswick is an apartment complex in the southwestern corner of exit 38.
Yeah.
And I had to think about that. A lot going on exit
There's
42.
a lot of
so I got
a lot of
exit
exit
42.
work going on now.
Yeah, exit 42 on the brain. So this development actually it's been in occupying in phases and whatnot, but they're finally done with everything. All final paving of all the different phases they've done, and 272 new connections or apartments out there is what that's bringing on as far as customers to the Joint Water Sewer Commission. And the yellow line there indicates private on-site gravity sewer that's going to a private pump station that has a little force main that jumps out to our closest manhole right there. But in this case, this is water line we're talking about, 1,236 linear feet of 8-inch C900 water main, plus a little bit of an easement. Now, we'll point out also here, there's an adjacent development that's going on. Pull up GIS since I've already got it pulled up. Help me explain this one. Vintage Brunswick. So there is also an adjacent development that's going into this area here. And along, it's right now it's the same company that's developing both parcels. And we had them go ahead and give us an easement through here, of which they're going to have a force main that's going to serve this property. So that's not included in this dedication right here. It's just that water main. Next one is back over here. Autumnswood Phase 4. And this is a residential development, the fourth phase of which is off of State Route 99, just a little east of the Sterling and 341 intersection. This one here has a little bit of water, 1,600 linear feet of water, and a little bit of gravity, sewer, 1,500 linear feet of gravity in there. And this was also, this will wrap out the phases of Autumnswood subdivision. And that's located right here. Phase 3, you may remember there was an easement and sewer main dedicated straight through this property of Phase 4, connected into the deep gravity here, which goes to our pump station 424. So there was already a trunk line, if you will, of gravity sewer that was dedicated in the previous commission meeting, and this is the balance of the sewers that are Phase 4. And there are record drawings to support each item, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
What's the red circle for around Chancellor Place?
Chancellor Place.
They just circled that to indicate where it's at. This,
Oh,
this here, that's just showing you the area where it's at.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that right there. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So Chancellor Place, that's a place name for this subdivision. It just bled over on Glynn County's GIS. It's annotated that way. So not Chancellor Place, that's this development over here. Phase 4 of Autumnswood is this one. And when you see something in orange, when we're providing exhibits and whatnot, orange is typically under construction, ownership non-determined yet. Could go private or public. In this case, going public. So it'll turn green if the board approves for the sewer and blue for the water.
Have a motion?
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the Fill Commission approve and accept these projects with associated documentation.
I'll second.
Motion second, any further?
I do have a question for Todd.
Yes.
On the autumn woods, on the values, can you explain how they reach, they're very close in linear feet and same size pipe, and the values are significantly different because, can you explain the difference in the two values on those? One's 133, the other one's 285.
He's talking about the difference between water and sewer.
Yeah.
Oh, difference in water.
How do we reach those values so that
So
people
Commissioner
would
Cook, I can provide
understand
you an answer.
Yeah.
An explanation may be questionable if it may
No,
not
no, I don't
explain.
think it's questionable. I'm just wondering how we reach the numbers like that. Is because of the fact it involves the labor putting it in? Is that
Correct. So the values, and thank you for asking this question, this gives us a chance to point out where that comes from. The values come from, and I think I've got a dedication document here. Should have one down here for autumns. The engineer of record typically will fill out the asset dedication documents. Yeah, that's
Well,
what
it is, one has water line 1236 and the other has, and it's valued at 66,000 and the other has 1,600, which is more, and it's valued
Right.
at 133,000.
So the values typically come from the engineer of record who represents the developer.
Mhm.
Their pricing is their pricing.
okay?
Yeah, it's not necessarily an appraised value.
Right, and it really doesn't have any effect on us. because
doesn't have any
It's still
effect
our
on-
property. It becomes our
Correct,
property.
correct.
Right, I understand that. I was just wondering because there's such disparity. I mean, I don't, and I know we accept them because it really is not of any value to us monetarily or anything. So
Correct. It gives our finance folks a basis of which to capitalize the assets.
okay.
But as far as the values, that is a fair question. We don't have a part in establishing that.
As long as it seems reasonable.
We look at it to see is it reasonable. If somebody were to put $1 in there, we'd raise our hand, or extreme amounts.
Right. Yeah.
But certainly we're going to recognize differences between water and sewer and between projects.
Right.
So-
Sewer typically being installed deeper, well pointing and everything like that may be
Yeah.
necessary. That's going to be more expensive.
Exactly. Typically, gravity sewer will be more expensive. There's structures
Yeah, I
involved. The gravity sewer is deeper, et cetera. Like Mr. Burr said, water line is typically 3 feet of cover. Fire hydrants are the most expensive thing to deal with the water main valves.
You
So
can
we're
acknowledge that the-
using that number in our capitalization on our,
Fixed asset register to calculate depreciation. That's correct.
And obviously, engineers could have differences of opinions. So.
does it benefit us to have a higher depreciation? But from an insurance standpoint, is it?
We insure our assets at replacement value, not at depreciated value.
They give us that price, do they give us an itemization of how they came up with that price?
That's
No, sir. They don't provide us the document.
Otherwise, we're just taking it.
We are. Yeah. We're taking that licensed
And it's a
professional's
number,
opinion at
it's a
face
number
value.
we're putting in our records as the value of our system. But I mean, they could put $10, would we accept it?
No, I mean, like I said, there's a reasonableness check. I mean, if
Yeah,
you
but-
divide that out and figure, I mean, I can't see those numbers, but if you divide that out and it's what, $120 a foot for installed sewer, seems like that's roughly in the ballpark. Okay, it's not 120. I was wrong. What's that? 116.
On the fly.
But I mean, it's easy enough, it's
Yeah, right.
$182 a
out.
foot. Okay, that's in the ballpark. Yeah.
easy enough to ask them to break it out, isn't it?
We could. I don't know. They could provide us with anything. I don't know that. I'm not sure how we would verify the document.
I mean, unless we're asking.
Yeah.
But you got a basis for it. They're just not
Right.
pulling something out of there.
We could ask for their private bid documents, or typically,
Just give us how they came up with $163,000.
could certainly ask.
Value.
Not too much to ask.
Are there some sort of standards that are used in something like that, or is it just is?
I mean, the assumption would be that they're just literally putting what they paid the invoices for as the total. But we don't get a copy of the invoices
I
to
don't think I'd
confirm.
assume that necessarily, so. But
Naturalized things, you don't just do zeros.
No, I'm saying, my assumption would be this developer paid
That was their cost.
contractor A this amount of money.
I was just curious, because, I mean, the numbers are very skewed like that, and there's no consistency, definitely, so.
That is true.
One of them says 8-inch PVC, the other says 8-inch PVC C900. So is it both of them C900?
They'll both be C900.
On the water line, both of them BC 900, yes, sir.
All right.
I don't even
All
know
in
what
favor?
questions. Made enough
I
trouble.
think we made a motion.
Y'all made a motion, but we ain't voted yet.
Very good
All in
question.
favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Water production report. Mr. Burris.
All right. For the city system or the mainland system for the month, we did see a slight increase in flows because we finally got some dry weather for the month. Howard Coffin well repair job is out for bid now. That is due back the 5th of December. So at the next meeting, we'll hopefully have a contract award to repair that well site. If you recall, we did an inspection of the well. We've got some holes in the casing, and we've got sand getting in, so we shut the well down until we can get that repaired. So as a result, you see an increase over the last few months in flow, particularly at Goodyear and out towards Brunswick-Glynn and things like that. But overall, about 5 million gallons a day running through the system. System seems to be holding up pretty well, getting Howard Coffin back online. The hope would be we would knock down Brunswick-Glynn a little bit, getting Howard Coffin back online. And then, but overall, system seems to be moving along. The Canal Road project we'll talk about during the project report, but that should be online sometime next year as well. And again, we'll try to balance them as best we can when that happens. But fairly standard month. If you look at last year's graph, obviously, if you look at the chart on the next page there, Ms. Janice, pretty close to where we were this time last year. Major gap between this year and last year was obviously the extensive rain events we had during August and September compared to last year, knocking down some of that outdoor usage.
And Drew, what were the odor complaints about? Taste and odor complaints, you know?
Most of them were in the area around, honestly, Howard Coffin well, because that water's having to come from a lot further away, and so when we have to push water down, some of those dead end lines get a little stagnant. So we've had to change some of our flushing routes as a result of that. St. Simon's for the month, a little bit above last month, but not substantially above last month for St. Simon's, about 2.5 million gallons a day. For the month, that does, of course, include the bulk. That does not include Georgia-Florida weekend because that started on the 1st. So we should see a little bit of a bump in the November usage for St. Simon's. But again, very consistent month to month compared to last year within the ballpark, things like that. So you see the big spike in the summer when it was very dry, and then it started trending down from there. Now we're back to sort of normal usage when they're not having a lot of outdoor water usage.
And the complaints, the odor complaints?
Most of those were, that were based off of memory, were people that had got back in town after not being here for several months and needed to flush their side a little bit. If you've been out of town for 6 months, drain your hot water heater when you get back. In the South Mainland, about 323,000 gallons per day on the South Mainland. Did get Fancy Bluff back up and running consistently, which has helped out with we had a couple months ago a lot of those complaints because Fancy Bluff was not running. Those are coming along, and then we do the Exit 29 well there in the center. Those documents are out for bid for the new water production facility, ground storage tank, and elevated storage tank on that, the SPLOST project, and those bids are due back January the 8th. So.
Pam's been busy. Very busy.
Well, we bid it last week, and accepting bids the week before Christmas did not seem like a good time to take bids. So,
Right.
we'll get them right after the first of the year when people are more interested in providing us numbers.
Move to to the wastewater now?
Your unaccounted water is,
Oh, I missed the
below 10?
unaccounted water report.
Yeah,
My apologies.
Below 10? I was gonna say, that's,
Well, 99% is what the AMI percentage, so the 300 or so meters there, those were had to be read with AMR. We didn't get the signal back. They guarantee us 98%, is that correct? 98.5%. So if we're below 98.5, we have to call them and they have to come out and adjust the network for doing the AMI readings. Month of September, we gave them a little bit of a pass because there was a few power outage issues that they were dealing with for that month. But unaccounted for water under 10% for the month. Again, that's going to fluctuate some. We calibrate our well meters quarterly, so as those calibrate, that's going to change a little bit. Also, we do have some larger water users. We had the issue at the when we get to the wastewater report, the reading from Academy Creek hadn't been coming the last 2 months. Well, Academy Creek's actually our largest water user, so when that reading's not coming through, it's going to jump the unaccounted for water up a little bit. So.
I ask a question on the meters that we don't get a reading from. Is typically, do we understand why we don't get the reading?
A lot of times it's because people have parked a vehicle over them, and the signal doesn't get out.
That qualifies as user error.
That's
right?
user most of the time. Most of the time, it is user error,
Okay.
or for some, we've had a couple that for whatever reason the antenna has fallen, the meter lid has cracked, and the antenna's fallen down, and then you can't get out. So
Nothing.
variety of issues.
extraordinary.
Nothing
that would
extraordinary,
raise any
just
flags. Okay.
normal issues. And again, we do the AMR readings and pick them up most of the time. And if we can't get an AMR reading, then we'll physically walk up and see what's going on. Sometimes we do have to get people to move their cars. I genuinely don't think most of them are intentional. They just weren't paying attention to where they parked their cars at. Yeah, exactly. We did have one customer that was trying to do some landscaping and continued. They were trying to help us out. They said they were putting a giant metal plate over the meter box. So to keep people from driving over and breaking the meter box, but then we could never get a reading from the meter because of a giant metal plate over the top of it.
Right.
Like, please stop putting that there.
You're giving people ideas.
That's funny.
We figured it out pretty quickly. We get those reports of what didn't get a reading. All right, for the wastewater report, you see a drastic reduction in flows for the month at Academy Creek. We have found 2 more significant contributors to I&I in the system that were not reflected here even. So those have been reduced even further. We found a connection on T Street, that a collapsed line was draining right there across the street from the plant. Apparently there had been back and forth between us and the City Public Works for several months of who was responsible, and we determined it was our line that was collapsed, and we got that corrected. And then the old Shipyard Drive, there was an old long line out there on Shipyard Drive near King and Prince that nobody is tied to, and it was draining a whole lot of clean water. So we plugged that one because there's no customers on it, and that knocked the run times at the pump station down about 100 minutes a day. I popped a manhole and it was running clean water. There was no sand in it. It was running clean water, and so we started backtracking. When you open up a manhole, you typically don't expect to see clean water in it. Typically, you don't expect to see clean water in it. But 7.3 million gallons for the month at Academy. We get to the project report. We're running on one side of the contact chamber, so we got the other side down for the UV system installation. And then next month, you'll see some more changes to the report because we are actively degridding Aeration Basin 3 like we did Aeration Basin 2 earlier this year. Talked right before we came in here. We've already hauled off somewhere between 100 and 120 yards of grit out of that basin, and we're about 30% done. And
Where does that go?
we take it to the landfill down in Folkestone. So we pump it into the clarifier, and then we stack it up, let it surcharge the water out of it, then we take it to the landfill. So we're about 30% done, maybe 40% done, and so we've hauled about half of what's out of the clarifier, so we're going to end up pulling somewhere between 500 and 600 yards of grit out of that basin. Aeration Basin 2, when we cleaned it out, we got about 800 yards of grit out of Aeration Basin 2. So we are literally correcting decades of deferred maintenance activities.
Will it switch to an ongoing maintenance cycle?
Yes, every year the plan is we'll take one of them down and so they never go more than 3 years without being cleaned out. Because now we know how to do it. We got a system that works pretty well now. So we bring in some temporary help. They spray water hoses or fire hoses down onto the grit and flush it into a chopper pump, hydraulic chopper pump, so it won't clog up, and then we pump it into the basin, let it dewater there, and then take it to the landfill. But for the month, you see that still got some I&I based off the influent concentrations. You would expect those to be a little bit higher, but those are coming up this month. But still having the ammonia issues, which we're hoping that cleaning out the aeration basins will improve that, and also the new project that's ongoing for the RAS will improve that. But 97% removal on the BOD for the month and 99% removal of the TSS for the month. So making progress there. Still got a ways to go, but we are improving steadily at that facility. Grass looks a little lopsided for the last few months, but it's coming back into normal ranges now. We got back under 6 for the day, one day last week. So. Surprisingly, those super high tides we had did not seem to impact the flows a lot, which is very surprising. We started
water on 17.
We started pulling data expecting the flows to go up, and we did not see a lot of impact. So whatever's getting in there does not appear to be tidal in the Academy Basin. Because if it was tidal, it would have definitely been getting in there last week. So, well, there's probably some tidal impacts, but it doesn't appear to be mostly tidal impacts. Dunbar Creek back down to 3.3 million gallons for the month. We're back under 3 now. Got a long tail on draining the water out of the system, but plant handled that very, very successfully. 98% BOD and almost 99% TSS removal from that facility for the month. Plant operating very efficiently with the DO control. New filters and UV are doing very well. Plant is operating as it should be at this point.
When do you think we'll have a permit to go to 5 MGD?
We've got the waste load, and we've got to submit the final drawings on how we're going to do the phosphorus. I'd be shocked if it was within 6 months just because of the time frame right now. And then Southport for the month, a little over 500,000 gallons a day running through Southport for the month. Plant, again, not a lot of flow going through, about a third of the capacity taken up there, but 98% on BOD and TSS removal for the month. So all of our plants are trending in the right direction. A little more work we got to do at Academy, but Dunbar and Southport are doing very well, and plant staff should be commended for their efforts getting things back under control.
That's a good report. Okay, the photographs.
All right, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is our project report. Pictures of what's going on out in the field. First project to talk about is our 4105, 4107 basin expansion. It's a force main improvement project, and TB Landmark is our contractor. You can see the work going on right there just north of Old Jessup Road on Crispin, kind of facing towards the south that way. And you see Bacon, the pig, just popped out. That's used as a swab to clean the newly installed force main of debris and dirt, make sure it's good and clean and passable. And they call that pigging.
That's done with clean water.
Sometimes they do it with ice.
Yeah.
Ice pigging.
How do you pull it through?
It's pressure. Pull, push through.
Don't do the ice pigging. That's a waste. I did that one time.
Big slushy.
They use your water.
You can see here, if you'll notice the silver finish of these fittings that are going in, these ball valves and whatnot on the air release valves. Stainless steel, that's what we specify, 316 stainless on the appurtenances and valves and such. And you may notice these, they look like telecom cabinets of sorts. And that's kind of by purpose or by design. We used to use concrete in-ground manholes for air release valves. Let me back up a little bit. Air release valve, wastewater by nature will develop gas over time. Gas will come out of solutions, time it's formed from the bacteria activity and whatnot. That gas forms bubbles in the high points of the force main. Those bubbles will accumulate. That can cause a lot of issues with your flow for your pumps. It creates a barrier, a barricade, makes it really difficult, and it can really impact your flow rates on your force mains. You have to get that gas out of the mains to get a solid pipe full of water. And so we have what's called air release valves at the high points where that gas collects naturally in the high points. And it exhausts that gas with every cycle or every push of the water down the force main. Now, it's very important. These are, with anything, it's a maintenance item. It still has to be maintained. A lot of times when we're in ground in a manhole, it's forgotten about. So what we do, these pedestals are a lot more visible, easier to access and maintain, and not noticeable, but they're also a lot easier to install in the right-of-ways. A lot of times the right-of-ways are really congested anyway with other utilities, and so these are really easy to simply run your service pipe from your force main on off to the side of the right-of-way. You can tuck this down back conveniently and keep your force main functioning as it should. So that's a good shot of the guys working there installing that. And that's typically one of the last things that's done in a force main project. There's a good shot of one of the locations of the service whip coming out for your air release valve. That's facing back towards Old Jessup Road. This is a picture of, we affectionately call them urinals. Guys will get that. But it's just a catch basin inside of a manhole with a downspout that directs the flow from the receiving force main, or the force main that manhole is receiving, down into the outward channel. So that's what that is. And that one's actually coming from 4107, I believe. It's the one on the upstream side. Road patch going on here, and the guys are actually going to come back and they're actually going to square this patch off right in front of Eagles Point Apartments and whatnot. They're actually going to do a little bit better job than just a patch. They're going to come back and actually square that patch off and make it look a lot better. That was one of our punch list items. With every project, we have punch list items. Okay, one last thing to talk about in here. Also, the receiving manholes also receive a protective coating. When that force main discharges that wastewater in, there's a lot of splashing, agitation. Gases can come out of solution and create a corrosive environment. So all receiving manholes we have coated with a protective coating that helps with the longevity of that receiving manhole, protect it. Next project, Arco area, water and sewer extension. This is a really good aerial view of the last bit of construction going on out there as far as the installation of the sewer main. You can see the tight, unopened alley. That's private right-of-way, or excuse me, public right-of-way through there. It's an unopened alley that through the years has been encroached on. Our legal folks would say trespassed on. But anyway, this was one of the adjustments we made with the project at the idea of the contractor actually worked with them and the engineer to get some of the new gravity mains out of the roadways, avoid pavement replacements, and get them in these public right-of-ways. May take a little more work, open them up, get them in there, but it's happening. It's just a very slow, tedious, meticulous process.
And it's a benefit to the customers because their laterals are already coming out that direction.
Very good point. So you'll see along in the back of some of these are the septic systems. So this new gravity system is running right by their septic systems.
So reduce their cost to hook in them.
Exactly. Mr. Burroughs pointed out it makes the connections that much easier. And there are some of those going on along the way. Next picture down is another good shot looking down one of the unopened right-of-ways or alleys. And you can see the fencing and sheds and dog kennels and everything else you can imagine that grows over time in those areas. More good shots of that, the type of work that's going on. It's a very wet area, as are most of our deep digs in our system. Okay, galvanized replacements. That's an ongoing project with our in-house staffing. Mr.
Recently finished up Lake Circle Drive off of Old Cypress Mill, and they're finishing up the areas in El Dorado, Menendez, Rivera, those streets over there off of Frederica. Got to get one more section of 8-inch shot by the drilling contractor to tie all that loop in, but they're trying to get all of the customers tied onto the new line even before they loop it. They'll get more benefits once it's looped, but get them tied on the new line and off of that old galvanized line that's in there.
Pretty immediate benefit and improvement in the service once folks are tied on these new lines like this.
Of course, look at the, look at the pipes.
Yeah, that's typical. So this is back, this is Ms. Brandy, Administrative Coordinator for Water Distribution over there at the South Harrington plant, and she's proudly showing off some of the gold they've dug out of the ground that comes out of the scrap pile in the back. So.
Can I ask an obvious question? What was the goal of putting galvanized piping at the time? Was it cost effective or?
Technology at the time, it was probably the cheapest, most
Yeah.
convenient. You know, it was better than black iron pipe. It had a galvanized coating, lasted a little bit longer, but it was probably the most the technology of the day. Yeah.
Sure didn't take too long to figure out that it wasn't going to work out in the long run.
I mean, they put
Well, I'll
galvanized
say-
in for a good 20, 25 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it went in the ground for a while.
Yeah, yeah. I'll say it's probably lived its life expectancy. It's beyond, obviously beyond. So. But you can see the fittings and all that, and the materials and whatnot we use today, the plastic, flexible tubing, that type of thing, the brass fittings,
Yeah.
compression fittings. It's so much easier and faster to install. It's a lot less fittings. You can navigate corners and bends without having to put all these extra fittings in
And no soldering.
there. No soldering, that's correct.
No soldering.
Okay, great project going on right now. If you haven't been out this way, I encourage you to go look out towards the airport, Canal Road Water Production Facility. We've got some above ground structure. We're always happy when we have above ground structure with our assets to show off. Most of our stuff ends up buried, but in this case, ground storage tank out there by Air National Guard, just on the west side of Herridiggers Boulevard, north of the intersection. So,
These photos here, where was a conference out on Jekyll Island, Georgia Association of Water Professionals had their fall conference on Jekyll, and one of the items that attendees could do was tour a couple of local facilities. So one of the things they could tour was a construction site for Canal Road. So most of those people in that photo are from other utilities, engineering firms statewide that had come down to Jekyll for the week and got to tour that facility. My understanding is it went very well. I did not go out there. I'd seen the facility a few times, so I let them take that for themselves. But good opportunity for some folks around the state to see the good work we're doing.
absolutely, good chance. Mr. Burr said to show off the improvements Joint Water is putting out there for our customers.
Thanks. Been a hot topic on the Neighbors app.
Oh, yeah?
also. Yes. They want to know, what is that big building, their ground building they're building there?
Missile silo, yeah.
You know, I'm old enough to know about that, but
You can see a little bit kind of the background of this picture over here. Of note, this machine out here, that is Glynn County's project, which is
Yeah.
to the west, which is their traffic circle for Glencoe, Herridiggers Canal Road.
There's technically 3 projects going on simultaneously in that intersection. So there's a roundabout, there's the widening project on Canal, and our project going on out there all simultaneously.
And Fletzy's going, what's going on over there? This is very close to their back
Yep.
entrance back there.
right, that's true.
All right, so great picture. This is another good shot again, just of the tank practically finished, except for the interior. Pre-con or contractor there built that guy there. Aerator tray assembly has still got to go on top, so it's going to get a little bit taller in total. And you can see the layout of the rebar, pipe stub outs, and conduit stub outs for electrical. That's where our building is going to go with our service pumps and everything. So, looking good out there.
What's the capacity of that tank?
250,000 gallons for the tank, and the pumps will do about 1,000 to 1,500 gallons a minute with a 1,500 gallon a minute pumps. Is that what those are?
Yeah, they're typically, yeah.
But they're on
1,000.
VFDs, so we run about 1,000 gallons a minute with them. But we have more capacity in case there's a huge demand in the area.
And just a refresher on this, so the water comes out of the ground from our well, and it pumps directly over the top through aerator trays, comes down through the top of the ground storage tank, or GST we call that, and it comes down here.
Pre-chlorinated before it goes in.
Yeah, yeah. And we add a little bit of chlorine, so it hits that tray, comes down, and we hit the tray, so it off-gases our natural hydrogen sulfide, which comes out of our groundwater. This is inside, there'll be baffles inside here to direct the flow of the water. This is a good view of the inside of the tank. It'll look a little different here once it's painted and whatnot. And then from there, our high service pumps will pull from the ground storage tank. It'll come out of there underground. It'll pop up from our influent line to our high service pumps inside here. And then from there, it goes into the distribution system and on out to the customers. So pretty much a three-part process: well, ground storage tank, then high service pumps. A little bit of chlorine added along the way.
And phosphates.
And phosphates. Yeah.
No fluoride. We don't add fluoride. We have a naturally occurring amounts of fluoride. We have not added fluoride in over a decade.
Okay, next project, 4002 rehab. This is a group of three pump stations, 4002, 4001, and 3101 on the south end of exit 29. So making really good progress at 4002. The station has received a substantial makeover inside. And what you see inside of here is the electrical room, new wall put in here, and this is why do we do a separate electrical room so we can air condition the components that drive the motors.
But in much smaller units to air condition just the electrical room versus an entire three-story building.
Exactly.
What's that top photo of?
So this is the electrical room looking up. So kind of if you were standing here with these gentlemen and you looked straight up, you would see this right here. And now this is one of the kind of little, our contractor recommended, and they took it upon themselves once we said, yeah, makes good sense. They just added a reinforcing gusset in here for our beam, and that's actually the trolley that lifts and pulls the pumps from down below and on out on the back of the truck through the bay door. And they noticed that when they were retrieving the pumps and whatnot, they saw a little wiggle going on here, so they said, hey, we need to stiffen that up. Made good sense. We appreciated that recommendation, and they went ahead and did that for us. But I thought it was pretty interesting out here, and they did a really good job of how tightly they brought this wall, this masonry wall, and meshed it into the existing ceiling. Really good job on that. So structurally, it's looking real good. Electrical improvements are going on right now. A lot of cabinets, motor controllers, et cetera, going on.
Last estimate we got was hopefully the electrical work will be done mid-December out there. So maybe we can get that portion of the project out of the way, get everything back on the normal electrical service off the bypass and everything like that. So looking at mid-December.
Good, and thank you, Mr. Burris, for pointing that out. So we did try to really shave down contractor costs on this to get the best price we could. That's one of the things we did in-house, is providing the bypass for the contractor on this station.
All the work's inside the building?
Yes, sir, practically. There's, a little bit all outside for the meter panel and that kind of thing like that, but practically everything is inside on this station. And they're doing a really good job preserving the artwork that's on the building too. So, yeah. And a new door, thank goodness.
That new door, the old door was a little drafty.
Yeah. It's looking really good out there. Okay, pump station 4044. This is a really good overhead shot. Gives you a perspective for the whole project. Pay less, or now it's breaks for less. Our old original station is right here, and this is the wet well and valve pit. It looks similar, but this is the wet well and this is the valve pit control panel behind it. You can see the big dig going on here. First thing we installed structurally was the wet well, and that's the big 10-foot diameter wet well here. That's now totally in place, and now they're digging back the gravity sewer extension all the way back to what will become a manhole, the existing wet well will. Now, one of the cost savings things with this is they're going to take and relocate the skid panel and bracket to the new pump station side over here, reuse all that. Got two bypasses going on. Anything else to showcase?
Well, hot off the press from Jason, they're backfilling now.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that's they're practically.
still got to do they still got to cut the road to go to that manhole. And that's going to be a bit of a traffic done at night situation out there.
Definitely done at night. It's not very far, but here's a receiving manhole. And they've got, right now, this force main comes down and dumps into this manhole here. Well, it's going to do the same thing, same receiving manhole, but it's going to come from here now. And right here, but that's what we're saying. Cut both lanes. This traffic will be rerouted probably down connector here or whatnot in the meantime, but this will be definitely night work.
So size is the existing force main?
I think it's a 6 now, and we're going to an 8.
6 inch, yeah. 6 probably, I don't think it's any larger than 8 inch.
Just out of that with a reducer and not have to cut the pavement?
Such a short one, you know, it's fluid velocities. If we kept it the same, it's gonna really blast the inside of that receiving manhole. So
We can take a look.
it is a busy road. It is a very busy road. The receiving manhole needs some work anyway, so they're gonna have to go out there. Again, as we talked before about the protective coating, they've got to do that as part of this project as well. So.
They would do the cuts at night usually.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how busy that is at night. I would imagine too busy.
It's not busy at night.
Show us the manhole, show us where the pump station is on that picture, point to it, and then show us where the manhole is tying into it.
Right, so we call these, I call them jumper stations, just a short little pump. So here in the flatlands, we go down as far as we can until we get deeper than we like, then we have to lift it up, pump it up, and get it to the next manhole so it runs downhill, we take advantage of gravity. That's exactly what we're doing here. Pretty deep, wet well existing, this one's pretty deep. We pump it back up and get it to the next manhole and let it run downhill to the next pump station, which is down by Sonic, is where this one's gonna be. So it is a short little run, but it's necessary. Necessary. Now there's some unique ways to, skin the cat on that one, but in this case we're going back with a traditional pump station, duplex pump station.
I tried to figure out how to eliminate it. It was not going to be cost effective.
Some kind of Venturi something. Or
Yeah.
something. This just seems like there ought to be something you could do.
I had to relay a lot of pipe to make that not be a pump station anymore.
Well, it's pretty minimal disruption though in the area.
For right now, yes, sir.
Yeah, and it's interesting to look at when you go by. So, like,
As long as you
don't know what
stay,
anyone's doing.
behind that orange fence when you're looking.
I've been
Yeah.
tempted to stop a few times.
Yeah, that
I don't like
pretty
to,
deep hole out there right
Yeah,
now.
You say they're backfilling now though? Okay.
According to a message me and Todd got during this meeting,
Okay.
they're backfilling now.
There we go. There we go. All right. There's another good shot of here, while we're here. This is the private pump station that is there, and as part of our project, we're eliminating this. The gravity's to this private station now.
From
This
the
is
bank?
going away, and it's
Yes.
gravity's straight
Right,
through.
from the bank, right, yeah.
Yep, yeah, the bank, commercial developments and whatnot. Even as far as Shane's Ripjack, those
Oh, the whole group, yeah.
all come to here.
Not Publix.
No, sir. No, sir. Public hits it from a different direction. Another good shot there. You can see so this is dewatering. A lot of groundwater you can manage, especially this depth. Sometimes you even have to bench down because you can really only vacuum or pull water due to physics a certain height. Sometimes you have to bench down so that you can get the water down that you need, get the pipes down deep enough to lift the waters, which you need to do. So this is called a well point air wing. Yeah. All right. Okay, Dunbar Creek.
Dunbar Creek, we've really only got 2 items remaining to be completed out there. The roadway improvements, which will be a reduction off of what we originally proposed to do that, a couple $100,000 reduction. We're not going to end up widening that road all the way out. We're just going to end up keeping it single lane and making some changes to the routing in the plant. If you go to the bottom photo, Todd, we're going to, instead of trying to make that turn, because we're either going to take that tree down, we're trying to figure that out, or go in between the building and the filter structure with the roadway, because it's pretty tight back in there now. And the other thing we're having to do, as we talked about earlier with the new permit, we're going to get a phosphorus limit. So the original proposal was to dose alum and lime to precipitate out the phosphorus. At the conference, we were made aware of another product that is only a 1 dose and does not increase the amount of sludge that is created, because the main issue with alum and lime is you create a lot more sludge that you have to deal with. And so I've asked the contractor, and because it's design build, the engineer, through him, to consider cost impacts of both of those and make a recommendation before we move forward with what will be a change order to add the new equipment for that. So hopefully we'll have something for your consideration at the December meeting for the final change order for that project to install the new chemical treatment system and obviously a deduct for the roadway improvements. So probably be somewhere in a $200,000 range net by the time you do the deduct for the roadway and the increase for the chemical feed equipment. But plant is operating very effectively as is. The phosphorus limits, because it's all essentially domestic waste. There's no industrial waste coming into that facility. Phosphorus not too high coming in there. Easy candidate for chemical precipitation, and we'll be very effective moving forward at that facility.
When we get to 5 million gallons per day, then it's going to reduce our numbers are up in the 80s now.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, we're running about 3 million a day, so we'll go 75, 80% on a month now. We'll drop back to 60%, which gives us a little more flexibility. But ultimately, the plant now is not permitted for 5, but it will treat 5. Everything's in place other than the phosphorus equipment to treat 5. So we've improved our hydraulics for high flow events and everything through this project. So plant is in really good shape right now. Future, we're going to need to do some work to the digesters and solids handling processes out there, but the actual treatment processes are in good shape out there now.
You should use this photograph in something for material somewhere. It's a really impressive looking facility.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You got to get some grass out there. Contractors hate having to get grass to grow.
Well,
In sand, yeah.
And getting grass to grow in sand, and they seemingly always want to start putting grass seed down in like November or December and want to know why it doesn't grow.
Too bad we can't put some sludge out to get that grass growing.
That's why we're reducing the scope. But on the next page, Mark Whitlow's the on-site operator. He's looking at the new clarifier there, that bright, what is that, turquoise, or whatever that color is. Is the new structure. It does not stay that color very long because it does get stained over time. But there's a slight leak on the weir there that's causing some short circuiting back into the clarifier. The water flows over and then goes back in. So that's being repaired by the contractor. It's just punch list item. Not necessarily impacting anything, just minor punch list item has to be addressed.
All right, very good. Highway 17 North Pump Station at Golden Shores Mobile Home Park. And that, no progress to speak of there. Just again showcasing
enjoy looking at this structure.
Yes, sir. The existing structure, and our contractor Popco is in charge of maintaining bypass assets for that station. So,
Where do they have that pump pumping at? That bypass pump?
Where do they have it pumping?
New force main.
Pumping into the 4-inch force main they put in, right?
That's correct.
What's
6-inch force main. I have no idea.
Because that little pump we had before was not getting the stuff through the system.
I'm not even
There's a lot of stuff in that pipe. And I just question if we don't need to back that pipe out. And if that pump's putting out enough, then just pull it on down.
It's as far as the force main, it's probably done a pretty good job of flushing it out. Gravity collection system, no doubt, needs probably a look-see once.
I'm just concerned because of the pump that we had in that.
Oh, I don't even know that we had.
Pump it was just barely getting into.
Yeah, I don't even know if we knew what they had in that.
Home Depot special.
Yes.
It was 110 volt, whatever it was, because they had an extension cord run to it. So. I don't know.
Really?
But it's going to be in much better shape. It's already in much better shape, and definitely will be in much better shape once our project is complete. Yeah, here we go for Academy Creek RAS and UV upgrades.
Yeah, so you got a shot there. That's in the existing chlorine building right there on top of the chlorine contact chamber. That the guy on the right there is our site superintendent from Reeves Young, and then the other two gentlemen work for White Electrical. There are electrical subcontractors. Looking at the drawings there, because on the photo below, you will see the demo. Keep going down. You see all those interior walls have been demoed out now, And if you go down there today, there's a lot more conduits that have been ran in there. The subcontractor that's coming in to start tying rebar together was hoping for the electrical subcontractor to get all the conduits in so he could tie his rebar around the conduits instead of vice versa, because that makes the conduit routing much more complicated. So that's coming along nicely now. Put a lot of conduit in last week, and so I have not been there today, but hopefully the new sub is on site. All the rebar has been delivered, and they hope to be pouring the floor of that new structure early December. And then there's your work in the RAS building. There's two pictures. You kind of got to look at both of them to see what's going on. See, there used to be concrete pedestals in there that have been demoed that are no longer needed. We put in a lot more electrical equipment, so we're trying to get some other items. Those aren't needed, more floor space, so they can start working on that. The pumps were supposed to be factory tested last week. I haven't heard the results of that, but assuming they pass the factory test, those should be shipped and delivered in December for the new RAS pumps. And then we're going to do one clarifier's worth of RAS pumps at a time as we go through, so it'll be a staged process. But the new pumps will do about 4 times the flow rate of the existing pumps, which will drastically improve our abilities to move sludge around at the facility. I'm going to guess end of January. He says he needs 2 weeks once we get a clarifier down. I'm going to assume a month. So.
Very good. Brunswick Villa area sewer extensions. And this is an ongoing project here. Looks pretty rough in the pictures here. You can see how this is Carey Street, but it's limited areas. That's one of the intentions of this project. It was divided into limited phases so that we wouldn't just go in and obliterate roadways throughout the area until the project was complete. So it is a limited for that first kind of phase. It's on the north side of the whole project. Contractors doing their best to keep access available for the residents and their trash collection and whatnot out there. There's another shot right here, right on the edge of Altama and Townsend Street. You can see as they snaked back behind the road here to make this connection. But right now, the majority of the work's been up here on Carey Street and everything behind the Boys and Girls Club is through the fence there, and the end of Townsend down here. You've probably seen that at one time they had the road blocked off here when they were doing this work through here. This back over. Good project. We're hoping it's going to pick up a little bit of pace as it goes forward, but we're looking forward to having all these folks on sewer collection system. Let's go Basin 4002. CIPP is an ongoing project there, and this is pretty much most of the basin is from Gloucester to the south, but even behind our office here, they were doing some work. Basin does extend this way as well, so a lot of lining work going on there, and I believe they've actually have been lining as well.
They've got about 20, well, I don't know what they've got done this week. They got it back in town yesterday, so they haven't got any liners installed this week. They're about 2,400 feet lined so far. They're doing 5 miles, so we got about half a mile done. A little less than half a mile, so they got about 4.5 more miles of pipe to line. But going pretty smoothly. One thing to note, when you line a pipe, you have to go back and cut all of the services out. Well, in downtown Brunswick, you have a lot of services to go back and cut out. So they've worked some long hours because once they get it, they cure it for 24 hours, they bypass, cure for 24 hours, and then had to go back and cut services. Well, cutting 1 or 2 services is one thing. They had to cut, I think, 17 off of one segment the other day. Yeah, so it's... Yeah.
Are we sure all those laterals are active out?
Yes. Yes. They were identified which ones were active and which ones were not active. So.
That's the cutter bit. When they go back and reestablish, you can imagine running the fiberglass sock through that pipe, and all the laterals are blocked off at that point, and then they get back in. It was just talked about to cut that out. So they raised this burr bit, little carbide or tungsten cutters on here, the articulated head. They can actually route that service and reestablish it back there. So that's what they're working on there.
See on the next page, the keep going down. The big truck where they lower the sock down in there and fill it with water and everything like that. So they had to bring the shorter truck because of the trees.
Yeah.
But pretty effective to get that done. And again, we can line this segment here is probably 400 foot long, 500 foot long. You can do that in a little over 24 hours work versus having to dig. That is a substantial both efficiency and cost savings for us to do it this way. So got some bigger lines closer to the pump station that's got to be lined. That's somewhat depending on them finishing the project up, because when it's bypassing, we have to let the levels get up a little higher. So we got to get that project completed so they can start getting on those lines. And then we've got some higher traffic areas we've got to deal with. There is a couple of segments in Gloucester that have to be lined, and the sewer line goes literally right down the middle of Gloucester. So that'll be done. Started Friday night for hopeful completion in the wee hours Sunday morning, because we know there's a lot of traffic Sunday morning coming into the city. And then there's also the old cast iron lines down between the courthouse and the Pate building are in need of rehabbing, and so those will be done on the weekends as well, just because we know those are very high traffic areas, and so they're keeping those into consideration. But going pretty smoothly thus far. We'll make sure that we'll make sure we have that truck in the middle of Newcastle during the Christmas
Put some
parade.
lights on it.
Yeah.
Put lights on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Decorate the truck and put it in the parade.
Yeah.
We'll dress Billy up as Santa. How about that?
Hey, last time I saw him, he was rocking a pretty good beard. He could probably make it happen now.
And thank you for the heads up on
Porch Fest, yes.
Yeah, literally, this was Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I called Andrew and was like, hey, just making sure.
Good call, sir. Good call. All right, so that's the end of the pictures. We have the detail, of course, in all of our projects listed out that are funded capital projects.
Yeah, like we mentioned, SPOS project for Exit 29 is out for bid now. It's not a funded project per se, but the well repairs at a Howard Coffin are out for bid. And we're getting very near bidding the Community Road Sewer Extension project. And based on some feedback from Commissioner Ford, we've added running the laterals there's gravity grinder connections. We've added running the service connections to the force mains to both sides of the road like we would during a water project. Typically during sewer project, we don't always do that, but we're going to go ahead and stub out the services for everything along the way so people don't have to cut the road when they want to tie in at that point. And then getting hopefully very near, we've sent around the last batch of comments for our generator installation project back to our electrical engineer for that one. So hopefully got some more project work coming out in the very near future.
Give us an update on the lead service line inventory.
Yes, sir. We sent out letters last week. We sent out 50,000 letters end of last week. Because we had to send them out to the account holder and the property owner. Those are not always the same, and if the names didn't match up in the database, you got 2 letters rather than us going through 30,000 line items to make sure which ones weren't the same. So if John Doe was the property owner and Jane Doe was the account holder, and you happen to be married, you got 2 letters, I'm sorry. That's just the way that worked out. Or if you're Fletsy, you probably got 700. But we've sent those out. There was an article in the paper, and it is if your service status is unknown, there is a survey attached in that packet. If you will fill that survey out, which has pictures on what the different material types are, their service line is 18 to 24 inches deep normally. If you can identify the material of your service and send that back to us, for every 500 that we get back, we will pick one of those 500 and give a $500 bill credit to. That'll be applied to your account after we go out and verify. If you send it back, we're going to go out and make sure you did it right and didn't just pencil whip the survey. So we get $500 bill credits for every 500 that comes in, because we got to get these numbers down. We're down around 16,000 unknowns now. We found about 1,000 more on plans that we could remove. So we're making progress, and we've got about 400 back so far, is my understanding. And so a couple days, we got about 400 back. You can fill out the survey, mail it back. We have a pre-stamped envelope in there that you can send that back to us, or you can go to our website and fill that out online. And so that hopefully will continue to come in strongly, because that will help us all out and get this thing knocked out, and we'll work on replacing the ones that need to be replaced once we get all the information back in.
Piece of equipment that we sent back or that we bought.
We didn't buy it. We canceled the order. It would have told us this, yes, sir.
Sent back is, the federal government wouldn't accept what we came up with them.
The state denied, even though we were told that they were under review and they had been approved by other states, and they were approved by other states. The state of Georgia did not allow that as a method for testing.
Is there an alternative to that piece of equipment?
We have come up with multiple alternatives, and all of the alternatives we have come up with have been denied by the state. Some states are allowing sampling programs to determine. We talked to the state of Georgia about it. Their response was, you can't use that to determine the absence of lead. You can, if you got lead on your samples, you can say that is a lead service line, but just because there's not lead on the sample doesn't mean you don't have a lead service line. So, we will make progress with the prescribed methods.
That machine cost.
It was going to be, we were going to order 2 of them, and I believe it was going to be about 70 grand for 2 of them. No, it was 70 grand a piece. It was going to be 140 grand for 2 of them. So we canceled that order and didn't get it in. Apparently there were several people in the state of Georgia that had pre-ordered these, and they all got canceled because the state wouldn't allow it as a method.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else?
That is all I have for you today, sir.
Yeah, nothing. We'll adjourn.